Have you ever loved someone so much you believed they'd never leave if your love was strong enough? Have you ever stood in the rain at midnight, holding a broken heart, and wondered if anyone would ever stop for you again? This is the story of Reese Carter, an ordinary American girl who was kicked out of her home in the middle of a storm, carrying both a fragile life inside her and a faith that was running dry. Until one night, a stranger named Kevin Lawson pulled over on that sleepless city street and said, "You're not alone." From that moment on, their lives were never the same. A journey of heartbreak, healing, and love rediscovered, tender, quiet, and so honest that anyone who listens might find a part of themselves. If you've ever believed that love has left you behind, stay with this story, because after the rain, you'll find your own sunrise. However, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so that you can follow all 10 episodes of Love, After All, a journey through faith, tears, and the quiet miracle called staying. In the fall, Brooklyn has its way of making people believe in something gentle. The wind carries the scent of cinnamon from the corner cafes, apartment lights shimmer through old windows, and somewhere, church bells blend with the sound of traffic on the avenue. Reese Carter stood in her tiny kitchen, hands dusted with flour, the smell of baked apples and cinnamon filling the air. She made the pie Bruce Miller once called the smell of childhood. Her apron was frayed at the edges, but she still wore it because Bruce had once said she looked like the wife I've always dreamed of. Tonight, Reese wanted everything to be perfect. She wanted Bruce to walk through that door and breathe in happiness, the kind they used to dream of. A small Brooklyn apartment, old music from Bluetooth speakers, and dinner that tasted like cinnamon and warmth. "Baby, I'm home." Bruce's voice came from the hallway, deep and steady, yet tonight it sounded different, tired somehow, or maybe like he was hiding something. Reese wiped her hands and came to greet him. She smiled the way she always did, the kind of smile that said, "You're home. I missed you. Please stay." But the hug was different. Bruce hugged her back, but loosely this time. His eyes flicked toward the phone in his pocket. Just a second's hesitation, but enough for Reese's heart to notice. Something had changed. "You're right on time. I just finished baking," she said. "Smells good," he replied, eyes still on his screen. Reese smiled softly, pretending not to see. Love, she thought, wasn't always bright and easy. Sometimes it needed forgiveness for tired days. She told herself he was just distracted. A warm dinner might remind him why they started. She set the table, chipped plates, 2 glasses of cheap wine, candlelight flickering against peeling walls. It wasn't much, but it was full of care. Reese didn't have money, but she had devotion, and she believed that was enough. Bruce sat down, loosening his tie with a sigh. "Long day?" Reese asked, gentle as always. "Yeah. Big meeting. I'm beat. But you did well, right?" "Yeah, I guess." His phone lit up. He smiled not at her, but at whoever was on the screen. Reese noticed. Her chest tightened small, like a fist in the dark. She said nothing, just cut a slice of pie and placed it in front of him. "I used your favorite apples, Granny Smith." "Thanks," he said absently. "I'll eat later, let it cool." That simple line stopped her cold. He always said warm pie was like you best when still warm. Now it was just let it cool. Reese folded her hands and listened to the ticking clock. 1, 2, 3. Each tick stretched like a lifetime. "Is there something you want to tell me?" she asked. "No. I've just been thinking a lot about the future." "Our future? My future?" Silence. Reese looked down at her flower-covered hands, the same hands that once held his under city lights, that held on when all they had were dreams. "I thought we were building a future together." "I used to think that too." The air thickened. Wind slipped through the window, carrying a distant train whistle. Reese tried to smile, to change the subject. "I bought a few plants for the windowsill. You said you liked that." "That's nice, but don't get too many. I'm planning to rearrange the place." "Rearrange?" "Yeah. I got promoted. Might move to the Upper East Side. It's classier there." "Classier." The word broke like glass. Reese said nothing. She knew she wasn't in the Upper East Side. She was Brooklyn cinnamon and apple pie. Bruce smiled, but his smile wasn't warm anymore. "You should have seen the company party, everyone so sharp, talking stocks and investments. You'd love that world. I don't need that world, Bruce, she said quietly. I just need you. Sometimes. Reese. Love isn't enough. The words were soft, but they hit like a storm. Reese didn't cry. She only smiled faintly and whispered, "Then I'll just try harder." She didn't know that it was already too late. That night, Bruce went to bed early. Reese sat by the window, looking down at the city streets. They say New York never sleeps, but that night she felt like she was the only one awake, keeping company with her loneliness in the glow of yellow light. The pie sat cold on the table, its crust sinking in. Inside it lay every hope she'd baked into the day. "Tomorrow will be different," she whispered. But deep down, she knew everything was quietly slipping away. Morning came. Bruce dressed sharply and wore new cologne. Reese made breakfast eggs, toast, coffee, but only grabbed his cup. "Big meeting. Don't wait for lunch. Want me to pack you a sandwich?" "No need. I'll eat out." The door closed behind him, leaving silence echoing in its wake. Reese looked around the chair, the dishes, the photo of them laughing by the sea. Everything was still there, except the feeling of us. At the daycare, the kids ran to her like always. "Miss Reese." Their voices made her smile. Here, she was still loved, still needed. She told stories, helped with crayons, wiped away tears, and for a moment, she forgot the ache of not being enough. That afternoon, her phone buzzed. "Working late. Don't wait. Company event in Midtown." "No, I love you." No emojis, just distance. Reese sighed, packed up, and walked home. On the way, couples held hands under streetlights. She remembered their first kiss under lights like these, outside an old bookstore. He'd said, "We don't need much, just trust." That promise now lay still, like a song gone out of tune. Late at night, Bruce came home, the scent of unfamiliar perfume trailing in with the cold air. "Did you eat?" she asked. "Yeah." "Tired? Just busy." "I missed you." He said nothing. Reese watched him walk past her into the bedroom. She sat alone on the couch, listening to the rain against the window. The candle still flickered a small light she was trying to keep alive in a room growing colder. She didn't know when silence had become their only language. In her journal, she wrote, "Love doesn't die because of betrayal. It dies when two people who once said 'I love you' stop speaking." She closed the notebook, took a deep breath, and promised herself she'd try again tomorrow. Because somewhere in the scent of cinnamon and apple pie, there was still a trace of hope. But across the room, Bruce was typing on his phone screen, light flickering on his expressionless face. He smiled, a smile that no longer belonged to her. Some mornings you wake up. The sunlight still looks the same. The coffee still smells the same, but your heart feels a little colder. Not because of the weather, but because the person lying beside you isn't facing you anymore. Brooklyn had grown foggier lately. Reese sat by the window, tracing small circles on the misted glass. On the table, a mug with a faded red heart, last year's Valentine's gift from Bruce, sat alone, its coffee gone cold. He'd left early. No note, no message. She once thought silence meant comfort, that words weren't always necessary between two people who knew each other deeply. But now, silence had become a canyon she didn't know how to cross. Bruce came home late every night. When she asked, he said there were company dinners, clients, and important meetings. Reese believed him, or tried to. She didn't want to be the suspicious kind. But every time he smiled at his phone, something inside her quietly broke. On Sunday, she made his favorite lasagna, played the song they used to love, lit candles, poured wine, everything just like before. Except that the feeling in us was gone. Bruce came home. He hung his coat, took off his watch, and glanced at the table. "You didn't have to go through all this, Reese. I already ate out." "It's okay. I just wanted." She paused, biting her lip, "wanted us to have dinner together, like we used to." He exhaled, short and sharp. "You always make things so heavy, because I feel you slipping away. I'm just busy, okay? I can't always play the perfect couple." That line cut deep. He used to call them the unbeatable team of two. Now, they were just a performance. Reese forced a smile, blinking back tears. "Come on, eat before it gets cold." He sat down, ate a few bites, then went quiet. The sound of his fork against the plate ticked coldly, like a clock counting down. After dinner, he sat on the sofa scrolling through his phone, chuckling softly. Reese sat across from him, hugging her knees, watching. Who are you talking to? Work. At this hour? Work doesn't have hours, Reese. You wouldn't get it. Maybe, she said softly. I just wish your work missed you the way I do. He didn't answer. He stood up and went into the bedroom. The door shut. That sound sharp. Final was the one she feared most. It sounded like someone leaving without looking back. That night, Reese couldn't sleep. She lay there, listening to the clock tick, the rain tapping against the window, and the breathing of the man beside her, a rhythm she once knew by heart, now foreign and unreachable. She turned away, closed her eyes, trying to find sleep in the space between them. But her heart whispered, faintly, "Do you still love me?" And silence was the answer. Monday morning, Reese went to the daycare as usual. The children ran to her, wrapping around her legs. "Miss Reese." One boy handed her a daisy he'd picked from the park, his gap-toothed grin making her laugh. Here, love was simple. No one asked her to be better, more prosperous, or stronger, just kind and patient. At lunch, she called Janelle, her best friend from their foster care days. "You okay?" Janelle asked immediately. "Yeah, I'm fine." "Reese, don't give me that fine. That means you're falling apart." Silence. Reese took a breath. "He's changed, Janelle. He's not the man I fell in love with anymore. Is there someone else?" "I don't know. Maybe it's work. Or someone from that world I'll never fit into. Listen to me. If someone makes you feel small in your love story, that's no longer love. I know, it's just letting go hurts. You don't have to let go right away. Just don't forget how to love yourself." Reese smiled, eyes stinging. Sometimes, the one who saves you isn't the person who loves you, but the friend brave enough to tell you the truth. That night, Bruce didn't come home. A text arrived. "Go to bed first." No reason, no explanation. Reese sat waiting until the clock hit 3 a.m. and realized she'd been waiting for someone who'd already left a long time ago. The next morning, he came home, his shirt wrinkled, a strange perfume clinging to him, eyes tired. "Where were you?" "Told you. Late meeting." "Bruce, do you still love me?" He looked at her, weary, detached. "Reese, stop asking questions like that. I'm exhausted. You're tired of saying it. I'm tired of not knowing. That's the difference." He shook his head and went into the shower, leaving her alone. The sound of running water drowned out her quiet sobs. Later, she opened the closet. The shirt she'd bought for him sat, shoved aside. On the shelf was a small, unopened gift box meant for men. Brand new. Her phone buzzed. A message flashed on the screen. "Last night was amazing. I can still smell cinnamon in your hair." Reese dropped the phone. Her heart fell with it. She didn't need to read more. That was enough. She sat on the bed, hands trembling, breathing as if every inhale was a fight not to break apart. When Bruce left for work, she cleaned the apartment, gathering laundry, scrubbing surfaces, doing anything to keep her hands busy. But when she washed his shirts, that unfamiliar perfume rose again, sharp and distant, not the scent she'd ever picked for him. That night, she wrote in her journal, "You said love isn't enough, but I think silence kills it faster. Every time we stop speaking, I hear my heart cracking." She closed the notebook, turned off the light, and lay on the cold bed. The apartment held only two sounds now: the fridge's hum and her uneven breath. Her phone buzzed. A message from Janelle. "If you need a place, come stay with me. I've always got a spare room." Reese stared at those words for a long time. She wasn't ready to leave, not yet. Not ready to admit that her love had already died. She still wanted to believe Bruce was just lost and that, if patient enough, love could find its way back. But sometimes love doesn't get lost. It just goes away. She turned toward the empty pillow beside her. Moonlight slipped through the curtain, glinting off the engagement ring on the nightstand. Reese took it off, placed it in its box, and closed the lid gently. Not because she wanted to end it, but she needed to keep her little dignity before losing herself completely. That day, it rained in New York from morning till night. The sky was gray, clouds heavy, and the damp air crept through every crack in the walls. Reese sat in the bathroom, her hands trembling as she held the pregnancy test. 2 pink lines appeared so clear she had to close her eyes, take a deep breath, and look again to ensure she wasn't imagining it. She laughed, tears spilling out at the same time. A whirl of emotions, fear, joy, and a fragile hope that maybe this miracle could save what was left of their love. There was a tiny life growing inside her, a part of him and her. She placed her hand on her stomach and whispered, "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here. Everything's going to be fine." All morning, she thought about how to tell Bruce. She searched online for the most memorable pregnancy announcements and smiled at the sweet ideas, cakes, cards, T-shirts that said Dad to be. But she chose the most straightforward way, a warm dinner, just like the night they first moved in together. Reese went to the market and bought his favorite non-alcoholic wine, green Granny Smith apples, and a bouquet of sunflowers. She hummed softly while setting the table, pushing away thoughts of the nights he came home late, convincing herself tonight would be different. By evening, a message came. Running late, stuck in a meeting, she texted back, "It's okay, I'll wait." The lights in the apartment stayed on for hours. Candlelight flickered against the photo of them at the beach last summer. Reese looked at that photo, the girl smiling widely, hair in the wind, eyes full of faith. Now she stood there, forcing a smile, trying to believe that love hadn't gone out yet. At 11, the lock turned. Bruce walked in, rain dripping from his coat, the smell of alcohol hanging in the air. He froze when he saw the candles. "What's all this?" "I have some good news." "Good news?" He loosened his tie, his voice heavy. Reese held out a small box tied with a white ribbon. Inside was the test, and a little card that read, "Hello, Dad." Silence. Only the sound of rain hitting the window. Reese looked at him, lips trembling, eyes full of hope. Bruce's face darkened. He gave a short, bitter laugh. "You're kidding, right?" "No. I'm pregnant, Bruce. We're going to have a baby." He tossed his keys on the table. "You're yoking." "Now, seriously, Reese, I don't understand. This is good news." "Good news? Christ, I'm fighting for a promotion, and you decide to trap me like this?" The words hit like a blade. Reese stepped back. "What are you saying? This is our child." "No, Reese. This is your problem." She stared at him, the man who once kissed her hands and swore, "I'll protect you even if the world turns its back." Now he was turning away, and the world outside was just as cold. "You can't mean that, Bruce. I can't do this alone." "Then don't. You're young. You've got time. I'll give you money. Take care of it." Reese froze. She hadn't misheard. He'd said, "Take care of it," as if the life inside her was just a mistake to erase. "You're joking, right?" "No. I'm not ready to be a father. And honestly, I'm not even sure the baby's mine." That last line shattered her. Tears poured down her face, mixing with the rain that slipped through the open window. "Bruce, I've never betrayed you. How could you even think that? Because I don't recognize you anymore. You're not the woman I thought I'd build my life with. I'm changing, Reese, and you're not keeping up." She choked, voice shaking. "You changed. Bruce, not me. You changed for that shiny world and those tight dresses, not for love." He was quiet for a moment, then walked toward the door. "Reese, I think it's best if you leave. We both need space." "You're kicking me out?" "I'm saving us from something worse." He opened the door. Wind and rain rushed in. Reese looked at him, waiting for him to stop her. He wouldn't meet her eyes. "Go, Reese. Don't make this harder." She stood there, rain and tears blending on her face, arms wrapped around her stomach. Then she turned and stepped into the hallway. The door shut behind her firm, final like a chapter closing. The rain hit her face, cold. Reese wandered down the street, both hands holding her belly, heart pounding out of rhythm. The city didn't stop for anyone. Cars kept moving, lights kept flashing, people kept rushing by. Only she was lost in her own storm. She stopped under the awning of a closed convenience store. Water streamed off the edge, soaking her shoulders. She pulled out her phone, only a few names in her contacts. Her thumb hovered over Janelle's name, but she couldn't call. She didn't want her friend to see her this broken. The screen lit up with a new message. Bruce, don't come back. Get your stuff tomorrow at noon. I don't want the neighbors asking questions. Reese let out a hollow laugh. He cared more about what people thought than about losing her. Wind whipped through, biting cold. She sank to the wet pavement, burying her face in her hands. I'm sorry, baby, she whispered. I couldn't protect you from this. She leaned against the wall, eyes closed. She could almost hear their memories through the rain laughter, promises by the beach, a wedding photo never printed. Everything is melting, blurring into the night. A woman passing by stopped. Are you okay, dear? Reese nodded, lying. I'm fine. She wasn't, but in this city, who really cared? She stood again, walking toward the subway station. Wind lashed her face, rain heavy and relentless. For a second, she thought of just walking forever, until she disappeared. Then her hand brushed her stomach. She stopped. No, I have to live. For you. Under the dim yellow lights of the station, Reese found an empty corner and sat down. Her clothes soaked through, hair plastered to her face, skin pale yet a faint spark remained in her eyes. Not hope. Survival. She opened her wallet, less than $40. No home. No family. Nowhere to go. Only the slight curve of her belly was proof of a life the world didn't want. She leaned her head back against the wall, eyes closing. A subway roared past, metal and wind screaming through the tunnels, carrying the endless hum of a city that never sleeps. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "If anyone can hear me, please, save us." No one answered. No one stopped. And then a pair of black shoes appeared before her. A deep, steady voice cut through the rain. "Are you Reese Carter?" She looked up. Under the flickering station light stood a man holding a black umbrella, raindrops sliding down its edge. He tilted his head, eyes kind. "You once sang for my mother at St. Catherine's Clinic. I'm Kevin Lawson." Reese blinked, stunned. Before she could respond, he offered his hand. "It's freezing. You shouldn't be here." She looked at that hand, broad, warm, steady, and for the first time in a long while, in the middle of the storm, Reese felt she wasn't alone anymore. Rainy nights in New York have a way of making people feel small. Reese stood on the subway steps, clutching a small, worn bag, the only thing she had left after being thrown out of the place she once called home. Her clothes were soaked, her hair clinging to her face, and her old canvas shoes were heavy with water. She didn't know where to go. No close friends, no family, no shelter. All she had left was a thin, trembling kind of faith that the night would eventually end, that every darkness must have a dawn. She didn't know if she'd last long enough to see it. She sat on the cold metal bench at the bus stop. The wind blew hard, sending another shiver through her. The rain fell in thick sheets, and the yellow streetlight reflected in puddles where her own face looked back at her, blurred and exhausted. Then, a car stopped by the curb. A black one, sleek and expensive, the kind of car Reese only ever saw through shop windows. The window rolled down, revealing a man with dark brown hair and calm eyes, steady, yet holding something she couldn't quite name. "Are you all right?" His voice was low, steady, rising above the sound of rain. Reese froze. In this city, "are you all right?" could sometimes be the start of trouble. She shook her head slightly. "I'm fine, thank you." But the man didn't look away. "You're soaked. Do you need me to take you somewhere? It's too cold to be out here, especially for someone pregnant." Reese stiffened. Before she could ask how he knew, he continued gently, "I'm Kevin Lawson. My mother, Clarice Lawson, was at St. Catherine's Clinic. You volunteered there. You used to sing to her every night, didn't you?" The wind swept through again, carrying the metallic scent of rain. Reese looked at him for a long moment as memory washed over her. "Mrs. Clarice, the frail woman with bright eyes, who always called her my little angel. She used to say, 'Your voice calms me more than medicine ever could.'" Reese had sung Amazing Grace to her every night until she fell asleep. "She's gone now, isn't she?" Kevin nodded softly. 2 years ago. "But she talked about you, Reese. She said if I ever met you, I should help you because you helped her leave this world in peace." Reese's throat tightened. No one had ever spoken about her like that. No one had ever said she'd given someone peace. She managed a small smile. I just did what anyone would have done. No, Kevin said quietly. No one else did. Only you. He opened the car door and offered his hand. Come on, let me take you somewhere safe. It's dangerous out here. Reese stared at his hand, large, clean, warm, yet unfamiliar. Part of her wanted to run. Another part, too tired, too broken, just wanted to believe. Aren't you afraid I might be lying? That I'm not who you think I am? Kevin gave a faint shrug. If I'm wrong, I'll deal with it. But if I'm right, maybe I just saved someone's life. I'd rather take that chance. Those words made Reese cry, not because they were heroic, but because no one had chosen to believe her first in a long time. She nodded and placed her hand in his. Kevin helped her into the car, turned on the heat, and handed her a towel. He didn't ask questions, didn't judge, just drove quietly through the rain. The car glided past rows of sleeping buildings, golden lights spilling from windows. Reese found herself wondering in how many of those homes were people crying, whispering "I'm fine" to no one. When the car stopped, she looked up and gasped. A tall glass building overlooking Central Park, its upper windows glowing softly. You live here? Kevin nodded. Just an apartment. Reese gave a shaky laugh. Just an apartment? Here? You're the person I'd walk past without daring to look up at. He smiled gently. Then you can look now. It's all right. He stepped out, holding an umbrella for her. The rain was still coming down hard. Reese followed him, her wet shoes squeaking with every step. In her head, one question kept echoing. Why would someone like him stop for someone like me? The elevator doors opened on the top floor, and Reese nearly forgot to breathe. The apartment was beautiful, spacious but not cold. Warm light glowed over polished wood floors, nature paintings lined the walls, and a white piano with a thin coat of dust stood in one corner. Kevin set the umbrella by the door and turned to her. You can take a shower, change clothes. There are towels in the guest room. I'll make some tea. I just need somewhere dry, Reese murmured. I don't want to bother you. Reese, Kevin said softly, if helping someone stay dry brings me peace, how could that ever be a bother? She said nothing. In that quiet, something inside her loosened. In the bathroom mirror, she barely recognized herself. Wet hair, swollen eyes, hollow cheeks. A woman who once believed love could hold up the world is now shaking, unsure how to hold herself together. Warm water streamed down her skin, washing away dirt, fear, and fragments of the past. She felt like she could breathe for the first time in weeks, even if just for a moment. The soft scent of jasmine tea filled the air when she came out, wrapped in the loose pajamas he'd given her. Kevin stood by the window, watching the rain. He turned and smiled. Your tea. She sat on the sofa, cupping the mug between her hands. You're being too kind. I don't understand. Why help me? Kevin was quiet for a while. Then he said, because once I didn't help fast enough. She looked up. When my mother died, I was in Boston. I was 10 minutes late. She passed in her sleep, and the last person she saw wasn't me, it was you. I've carried that guilt for 2 years. When I saw you sitting in the rain tonight, I thought, maybe God was giving me a second chance. Reese sat still, heart heavy and soft at once. Through the cracks of her brokenness, something gentle began to grow. You don't owe me anything, Kevin. It's not debt, he said quietly. It's gratitude. They fell silent, only the rain outside, the slow ticking clock, and the faint warmth of tea between their hands. After a while, Kevin spoke again. The guest room's down the hall. You can lock the door if it helps you feel safe. The phone connects directly to building security. You're safe here. Reese's eyes glistened. Thank you. Not just for the room, for seeing me as a person again. Kevin smiled. I think you're a lot more than that. When he left, Reese sat alone. The apartment was beautiful, too still. The lamplight reflected on the floor like a streak of dawn in the middle of the night. She looked out the window, the city still alive. Millions of windows and stories. Her hand moved to her stomach. Baby, she whispered, maybe someone just sent us an angel. Outside, the rain began to fade, and for the first time in a long while, Reese fell asleep without dreaming of Bruce. The first morning in Kevin's apartment felt like waking inside a warm blanket of light. Sunshine slipped through the curtains, soft and golden, and the scent of toasted bread drifted in the air. Reese opened her eyes, blinking, unsure where she was for a few seconds. Then it all came rushing back: the rain, the headlights, the hand reaching out, and the calm voice that had said, "You're safe now." Her chest still felt heavy, but not from fear anymore. Somewhere in the next room, a piano played softly, slow, even, like the steady rhythm of someone relearning peace. Reese stepped out. Kevin stood by the piano, white shirt sleeves rolled up, fingers resting lightly on the keys. Morning light caught his hair, turning the whole scene into something that looked like it belonged in a movie. He turned when he saw her and smiled. "Good morning. You play?" "Not really. Just a few chords my mother taught me." He pressed one last note, thin, tender, fading like a sigh. "I used to play for her every morning. Now it's just to habit." "It's a beautiful habit," Reese said softly. "Breakfast?" he asked. "I burned the toast a little, but it's still edible." She chuckled. "Burnt means character." Breakfast was simple: toast, eggs, and tea. Kevin didn't talk much, but his eyes lingered, constantly checking if she was warm enough, if she felt okay. His concern didn't suffocate her the way Bruce's once did. It was quiet, effortless, like the steady glow of a lamp that didn't need to be seen to give light. After they finished, Kevin said, "Reese, I have to fly to Seattle for 2 days. I've asked a trusted friend to keep an eye on the apartment. Stay here, rest. Don't worry about anything." She hesitated. "I can't stay here that long. You've already done too much. You need a safe place." "That's all this is," he said gently. "No debts, no favors. Just something my mother would have done if she was still here." The words softened her heart. "Thank you, Kevin, for everything. See you soon, Reese Carter." When the door closed, the apartment felt too still, too perfect. She opened the fridge: milk, fruit, and little boxes labeled in neat handwriting, "For Reese, breakfast." Every detail was thoughtful, deliberate, almost tender. She chuckled. Kevin had truly thought of everything. Reese sank into the sofa, looking out the wide window over Central Park, deep green under the morning Sunday. For a brief moment, she realized she could breathe again. She could exist without anyone having to say, "I love you." That evening, she called Janelle. "Reese, finally. I've been worried sick. I'm sorry. I didn't know what to say." "Where are you?" "Somewhere safe." "I'm okay, Janelle." "You sure?" "Yeah. Someone helped me." "A stranger?" "Yes. But somehow, I trust him." "Be careful, Ree." "I will. It's just for the first time in months. I'm not scared." Janelle paused, then said softly, "Maybe God sent him at the right moment." Reese smiled. "I want to believe that too." That night, she opened the window. The wind carried the scent of jasmine from the park. She placed her hand on her belly and whispered, "Baby, someone saved us. Maybe heaven hasn't forgotten us after all." 2 days later, Kevin returned. He brought a paper bag filled with maternity clothes, vitamins, and a small handwritten note. "There's no shame in needing help. Being strong doesn't mean doing everything alone." Reese read it again and again. No one had ever said words like that to her before. "You got all this for me?" she asked. Kevin shrugged lightly. "Just the basics. I also have a friend who's an OB/GYN in Manhattan, if you'd like a checkup." "I think I should," she said softly. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and bright white light. Reese gripped her hands together, nerves trembling. Kevin sat beside her, silent, only nodding whenever she looked his way. After the ultrasound, the doctor smiled. "Your baby's healthy. Strong heartbeat." Reese stared at the screen, a tiny flicker pulsing like a star in the night. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. Kevin handed her a tissue. "That's the most beautiful sound in the world, right?" "Yes," she whispered. "My baby. Ours." She stopped, corrected herself. "Mine." Kevin didn't speak. He just rested a steady hand on her shoulder. No words were needed, his eyes said it all. "You're not alone." The days that followed moved more slowly. Reese cleaned the apartment, read books, watered the plants, and cooked small meals. She began to reclaim the little rituals she'd lost, listening to music, writing in her journal, even humming while doing the dishes. One evening, she noticed the white piano. On the stand lies the sheet music for Amazing Grace, the song she used to sing to Kevin's mother. She touched the keys, pressing a few uncertain notes. The sound was slightly off, but warm. She played and sang softly, letting her voice tremble into something free. When the song ended, she realized Kevin was watching in the doorway. He smiled. "Your voice, still the same. Just like my mother described, soft as peace itself." "Thank you," she said quietly. "Music is the only thing that makes me feel alive." "Then keep singing," he said, "so we both can stay alive a little longer." Something in how he said it made her look up, startled, moved. In his eyes, she saw something she hadn't seen in a long, long time. Kindness without expectation. That night, Reese wrote in her journal, "There's a man who never promised to love me, but somehow made me believe I still deserve to be loved." Outside, rain began to fall again, but this time, it didn't feel cold. A candle burned beside the window, its soft light dancing across the wooden wall. And in that quiet apartment high above the city, for the first time in months, Reese smiled in her sleep. That January was colder than usual. New York lay under a thick fog, and every breath felt sharp with frost. Reese had begun to feel her body grow heavier. Waves of fatigue came without warning, forcing her to sit in the middle of simple chores. But she didn't tell Kevin. He'd already done so much she didn't want to be a burden. That morning, while slicing fruit in the kitchen, her vision blurred. The knife clattered to the floor and then everything went black. When she opened her eyes, white light filled the room. A steady beeping echoed from the heart monitor. The smell of antiseptic hung in the air. Reese tried to turn her head, but the world spun. Someone was sitting beside her. Kevin. He held her hand, his eyes bloodshot from sleeplessness. His shirt was wrinkled, and a dark, dried bloodstain was visible near the sleeve. "Reese, don't talk. You're safe now." She frowned weakly. "What happened?" "You fainted. Lost a lot of blood. They said you needed a transfusion immediately." She tried to form words, but he tightened his grip slightly, his voice low. "I gave mine." "You? Donated blood? For me?" "Yeah. Same type. Lucky match, it's rare." Her eyes widened. "But you could." "I'm fine," he interrupted with a faint, tired smile. "Just a little dizzy." Reese stared at him. She noticed the exhaustion etched into his face. For the first time, the dark circles, the unshaven jaw, the lines worry had carved at the corners of his eyes. "You've been here this whole time?" 3 hours. They said to wait for the results. I wasn't going anywhere." Outside, rain tapped against the hospital window, the grey sky blending with the fluorescent light, softening everything. Kevin sat silently, still holding her hand, gaze fixed on the city beyond the glass. After a moment, he spoke quietly, as if to himself. "My mother once told me, if you ever meet that girl again, help her live, Kevin. That's my last wish." Reese looked at him, eyes filling with tears. "You did all this just because of a promise?" He turned to her. Their eyes met steady, deep, so honest it made her chest tighten. "At first, yes, but now, I'm doing it because I want to." For a moment, the whole world stopped. Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside, only the sound of their hearts, two rhythms keeping each other alive in the fragile space between loss and survival. The next morning, the doctor walked in with a kind smile. "Both of you are fine. But, Reese, you need to rest and eat properly. Don't stress too much. The baby's healthy, but a little fragile." "Thank you, doctor," Reese whispered. When he left, Kevin grinned. "You heard him. Doctor's orders, no worrying, so that means I worry for you." She laughed softly, her voice lighter than it had been in days. "You're exhausted and still making jokes?" "It's what I do. Someone once told me I only joke when I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "Losing someone." The words were simple, but they struck her silent. She'd spent years being left behind, long enough to forget what it felt like to be kept. Now here was someone who didn't promise to stay, he just did. She turned away, afraid he'd see her eyes glisten. "You shouldn't have done that, Kevin. I'm not worth your blood." He smiled gently. "You sang to my mother with everything you had. You helped her leave in peace. Compared to that, a few pints of blood are nothing." 3 days later, Reese was discharged. When the car stopped in front of Kevin's building, she looked up. The sky was clear after the storm, sunlight streaming through the trees, reflecting off the glass windows. It had been so long since she'd seen light this bright. Kevin stepped out first, opening the door for her. "Careful, Reese." She took his hand, warmth spreading from his palm to hers, steady and calm. Inside, the apartment felt different. On the table sat a small bouquet and a handwritten note, "Welcome home. This place was always waiting for you." Reese bit her lip, hiding a smile. "You set all this up?" "No," he said, glancing upward with a playful grin. "The house did. Houses remember people." They both laughed, soft, real, and rare. That evening, Kevin brought in a tray of chicken soup. "Dinner. I made it." "You cooked?" "Yep. It might be a little salty, but the nutrients check out. I followed a YouTube tutorial." Reese giggled. "Then I'll eat every drop. Can't waste the effort of a straight-A student." He sat beside her, watching her eat. The lamplight fell across her face, still pale, but luminous. Something in his gaze softened, full of warmth and a quiet longing he didn't name. After dinner, he handed her a paper. "This is your prenatal appointment schedule. I booked the best doctor in the city. You don't need to worry about a thing. You really don't have to." "Reese," he interrupted gently, voice low but firm, "I want to." She nodded, not arguing, because deep down, she understood that sometimes letting someone care for you is its own strength. Late that night, she went to the kitchen for water. Kevin was still awake on the sofa, the blue glow of his laptop lighting his face. He was looking at old photos of his mother, her soft smile, silver hair, and eyes that mirrored his. "She'd be proud of you," Reese said quietly. He turned, smiling faintly. "I just wish she could see me now. Not for the job or apartment, but because I kept my word." "What word?" "If I could ever save someone, I wouldn't hesitate." Reese sat down beside him. "You did save me, Kevin. Not just with blood, with belief." He didn't respond. They sat there, side by side, listening to the rain beginning again outside the window. A single drop slid down the glass and broke, washing away what was left of the past. Reese whispered, "Thank you for being there when I needed someone most." Kevin's gaze lingered on the hand she had resting over her belly. "Thank you for letting me do what's right." In that quiet moment, high above the sleepless city, two people sat without a word, without a label, just knowing that somehow they'd found each other exactly when they needed to. Thunder rumbled in the distance, but inside that small apartment, peace remained steady and strong, like a promise written in blood. It was a soft morning in early spring when Kevin walked into Reese's room, holding 2 plane tickets. "Seattle," he said. Reese looked up, surprised. "Seattle?" "Yeah. My mother once dreamed of having a small house that faced the sea. I bought it. You need fresh air. We both need a new beginning." She fell silent. Memories of rain, Bruce, and that old apartment swept through her like a cold gust. "You want me to move there with you?" Kevin nodded. "Not because I want control. Because I want you to be safe. The house is big enough for space, for silence. You can start again there, no judgment, no ghosts." Reese looked at him for a long time. There was no pressure in his voice, no expectation, only quiet sincerity. And she nodded. The flight to Seattle passed in a gentle hush. The sky stretched deep and blue outside the window, sunlight spilling like silk. Reese looked down at her hands, the same hands that had once trembled in fear, now resting over her growing belly, where life pulsed steady and sure. Kevin leaned over, his voice soft. "Are you afraid of flying?" Reese smiled faintly. "No. I'm just thinking. Maybe this is the first time I've really left the past behind." He nodded, gaze distant. "Sometimes we have to fly away from the places that made us fall." When they landed, a thin mist covered Seattle. The ocean glimmered silver beneath the evening light. The house, Kevin had mentioned, sat on a hillside, sea in front, pine forest behind. White walls, wooden roof, a rose trellis by the porch like something lifted from a painting. Reese stood still, breath caught. "It's beautiful." Kevin nodded. "It was my mother's dream home. Now it's ours." She blinked. "Ours?" He smiled. "Ours, you, me, and the baby." His voice was calm, but something in it reached into the quietest corners of her heart, the ones she'd thought were gone. Life in Seattle was different. Every morning, sunlight streamed through the windows, and the sound of waves carried from afar. Reese woke early, brewed tea, and sat on the porch watching the fog lift. Kevin would wake later, make coffee, and share breakfast in silence, the peaceful kind, not the heavy kind. Reese started painting again. She set up an easel by the window, painting the sea, the sky, the quiet things she'd never stopped to notice before. One evening, Kevin came home early and found her painting. He stood behind her, watching the canvas, a woman holding a child, a man standing a few steps away in the golden glow of sunset, light connecting all three. "Who are they?" he asked softly. "They're what I want to keep," she said. Kevin didn't reply. He only smiled, a quiet, almost startled smile, as if something inside him had just shifted. That night, they sat on the porch drinking tea, the sea whispering below. "Do you ever think about slowing down?" Reese asked. "I never knew what that meant," Kevin said, looking at the waves. "But since you came along, I'm learning. And it's hard," he admitted, "but it's worth it." She laughed softly. "Worth it?" "Yeah. Because I've started to feel fear and worry, joy. Because I know what it means to see someone smile and feel lighter myself." Reese looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. "I used to think love gave everything until you had nothing left. But now I think love is peace, being next to someone, without pretending you're strong." Kevin turned to her, voice deep and steady. "Then you're exactly where you're meant to be." Time passed. Her belly grew rounder, and Kevin became her quiet guardian, cooking, reading parenting books, even trying lullabies, always off-key. Every time she laughed, he did too, as if her laughter was music he'd been waiting his whole life to hear. One evening, while she was painting, Reese felt a gentle kick. She froze, brush midair. "Kevin," she called, voice trembling. He rushed over. "What's wrong? Are you hurting?" "No." The baby kicked. She grabbed his hand, placing it over her belly. "Do feel it." 1 second. 2. Then tap. Kevin's eyes widened. Then he laughed, a deep, startled, beautiful laugh. "Hey there, kiddo. It's your dad." He grinned, shaking his head. "Sorry, couldn't help myself." Reese stared at him, eyes shining. "You called yourself Dad?" He nodded. Who else would it be? In that moment, between the sound of waves and the scent of salt and night, Reese knew she wasn't alone anymore. And this child would be born into love, not from the one who left, but from the one who chose to stay. Reese stood on the porch one morning, sunlight spilling across her face. Kevin came out beside her, coffee in hand. "You know," he said, "my mom used to say dawn is a reward for those who don't give up in the dark." Reese smiled, watching the sun rise over the water. "Then I guess I've walked far enough to earn that reward." Kevin looked at her, her silhouette framed in gold, eyes soft with peace. And in that moment, he realized something. Sometimes, love doesn't begin with a confession. It begins when you see someone standing in the light of dawn, and you know, without needing to say it, that is where you want to stay forever. Seattle had been drenched in rain for 2 days straight. The ocean wind shook the front door in steady bursts. Reese lay curled up on the sofa, hands over her belly, feeling its heaviness. The first contraction came like a quiet knife, deep and slow. She thought it was nothing, just another ache, until the second one hit, then the third, and tears spilled down her cheeks. "Kevin," she gasped. He was in the kitchen. One glance at her face and he knew. The world inside him tilted. "Reese, breathe. I'm here." He rushed to her side, helping her up, his hands trembling even as his voice stayed calm. "Okay, we're going to the hospital. Right now." Outside, rain poured like a curtain. The streets gleamed slick under the streetlights, every reflection trembling. Kevin drove with one hand, the other gripping hers tightly. "Stay with me. When it hurts, breathe in, then out. You've got this, Reese." She nodded, tears mixing with rain and sweat. White light, antiseptic air. The hospital rang with footsteps and the sharp rhythm of heart monitors. Kevin ran beside the gurney, his pulse pounding like thunder. "You can't go in, sir," a nurse said at the delivery room door. He hesitated. "Family." She looked at him for a moment, then nodded. "All right, but stay calm." He caught Reese's hand. "Listen to me," he whispered. "You've survived everything, the rain, the hunger, the fear, the heartbreak. You can do this too. I'm right here. I'm not leaving." Her breathing quickened. The monitor beeped steadily and strongly. The pain came in waves, relentless, breaking, crashing. And then, over it all, came a cry. The first cry, Reese sobbed. Kevin did too. "It's a boy," the doctor said softly. She couldn't speak, only stare at the tiny, wrinkled, red bundle they placed in her arms. "Would you like to cut the cord?" a nurse asked Kevin. He froze. I'm not his father." Reese reached out, smiling through tears. "But you're the real one." His hands shook as he took the scissors, cutting the thin red thread between two lives. A soft snip, and something invisible shifted forever. The baby opened his eyes for the first time, deep brown, like the earth after rain. Kevin looked at him, then at Reese, his voice rough. "Hey, little one, I'm your dad." For 3 days, Kevin never left the hospital. He learned to change diapers, swaddle, and rock a baby to sleep. Once, he was holding little Noah, the name Reese had chosen, reading the diaper instructions out loud like a financial report. Reese laughed until she cried. Watching him, clumsy, patient, determined, something inside her melted. On the third night, she woke to soft crying. Noah was fussing, and Kevin stood there, swaying, eyes half closed, singing off key. "Sleep, buddy. Please, or your dad's going down with you." She giggled quietly. He turned, relief flooding his face. "I've been at this since 2 a.m. You should rest." "I can." "No, you just gave birth. I've got him." He kissed Noah's forehead, then sat down with the baby resting on his chest. Within minutes, both were asleep. Reese watched them, the two men in her life, and felt peace deep inside her bones. The third bedroom had transformed into a tiny heaven when they returned home. Pale blue walls, white curtains, soft golden light, and a wooden crib carved with the name, Noah Gibson Carter. Reese touched the letters, tears rising. "You used both our last names." Kevin nodded. "Because he belongs to both of us." Noah grew fast, smiling more, sleeping less, demanding everything simultaneously. Kevin learned fatherhood like a soldier knows the sea by falling, swallowing water, and pushing forward. He read parenting books and asked endless questions, but he showed up. Reese once believed the perfect man was the one who provided the most. Now she knew. A real man is the one who stays when you're weak, when you need him most. One evening, after putting Noah to sleep, they sat on the porch. The sea shimmered under the moonlight, the air crisp with salt. "Do you miss your mother?" she asked. "Every day," he said softly. "But I think she's watching and smiling." "Why?" "Because I kept my promise, and somehow my reward was you." Reese turned away, smiling through the ache in her chest. He stepped closer, careful not to break the fragile quiet between them. "Reese," he said, voice barely above a whisper, "maybe it's too soon, but I can't keep quiet anymore. I love you." She froze, tears spilling again. "Don't say that. I'm not ready. I'm still scared." "I know," he said, "and I'll wait. Not because I need you to love me back, but because I want you to believe this love won't disappear, even if you can't take it yet." He didn't move closer. He didn't demand. He stood there, bathed in moonlight, looking at her like she was the only still thing in his world. Reese didn't answer, but that night, when she lay in bed with Noah between them, she listened to Kevin's slow, even breathing, warm and steady, and for the first time, she didn't dream of Bruce. She dreamed of laughter and a hand that would always reach for hers in the dawn. By the 3rd month, Reese was teaching again at a children's center nearby. She brought Noah. Kevin drove them daily, made coffee, packed bottles, and changed diapers. Sometimes, the other mothers would ask, "Your husband's amazing. Does he do everything?" Reese smiled. "He's not my husband. He's the best thing life ever sent me." That night, she told Kevin what they'd said. He laughed. "Sounds like I got a promotion from stranger to the best thing." "Don't get cocky," she teased. "I'm not. I'm grateful." Then his tone softened, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "Thank you, Reese, for letting me be a father, even without a drop of shared blood. Her eyes softened. Kevin, blood doesn't make a family. Loyalty, kindness, and love do. He smiled, repeating her words. Blood doesn't make a family. He squeezed her shoulder gently. But your love, it's made me a better man. As all three slept that night, the sea whispered beyond the windows. Moonlight poured over their intertwined shadows, no vows, no rings, just a sacred choice. Kevin had chosen to love without asking for anything back. Reese had chosen to trust without fear. And Noah, born from pain and tears, now slept safely between them, in the house where peace had finally found its home. That summer, Seattle glowed under gentle sunlight and soft winds from Puget Sound. Kevin's wooden house was now filled with laughter. Noah had started walking wobbly, curly-haired, brown-eyed, looking much like his adoptive father. Every morning, the little boy toddled to the porch, reaching out toward the sea and babbling, "Daddy, Mommy." Reese's heart swelled every time she heard it. It had been so long since she'd felt this kind of happiness, not the fragile kind built on illusions, but the quiet peace earned through tears, blood, and trust. She'd returned to teaching. The kids adored her, calling her Miss Reese with the sunshine smile. And they were right, her smile carried warmth that made people forget she'd ever walked through hell. One day, the school invited her to speak at a seminar on music and childhood. When the principal asked, Reese hesitated. She had once been the woman who hid behind her past, afraid of every spotlight. But then she saw Kevin's encouraging gaze, calm, confident, believing, and she said yes. The auditorium was packed that afternoon. Reese walked onto the stage in a pale blue dress, hair loosely tied back. Her hands trembled, but her voice was steady. "There was a time I stopped singing," she began, "because I thought my voice only brought pain. But someone once reminded me music can't save the world, but sometimes it can save a person. And sometimes that's enough." In the front row, Kevin held Noah, pride shining in his eyes. Reese paused, smiled, and began to sing Amazing Grace. Her voice rose soft, deep, and pure, filling every corner of the room. When she reached the line, "I once was lost, but now am found," Kevin's tears fell. He knew she was back. That night, after Noah was asleep, Reese stepped onto the porch. The moonlight painted the sea silver. The breeze brushed by like a sigh. Kevin came out behind her, carrying 2 cups of tea. "Don't you think life's strange?" Reese asked. "How so?" "It took everything I thought I needed, just to give me what I never dared to dream of." Kevin smiled, eyes on the horizon. "Life isn't fair, but sometimes it's unexpectedly kind." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the waves. Then Reese turned to him. "Do you remember that rainy night in New York? How could I forget? If you hadn't stopped your car," she laughed softly, "I probably wouldn't be here now." He looked at her, voice low. "Reese, I didn't stop the car. My heart did." She froze. He stepped closer, slow, steady, careful not to break the fragile stillness. "Reese Carter," he said, "I've kept my distance long enough. I've waited long enough. And if you're still afraid, I'll keep waiting. But if you tell me not to go, I'll never leave again." Reese looked into his eyes. The world went silent. The sea stilled. The wind stopped. Only her heartbeat remained, echoing in the space between them. "Kevin," she whispered, voice trembling but sure, "don't go." He didn't answer with words. He lifted his hand, brushed her cheek, and kissed her slow, warm, gentle, like a prayer finally answered. It wasn't a kiss of desire, but of arrival. A promise that, after all the wreckage, only love remained. Everything in the house changed from that day on, not louder, not brighter, just more whole. Reese painted again. She opened a small art class for children. Kevin still worked, but he came home earlier, always in time to bathe Noah, read to him, then sit with Reese on the porch, sharing tea under the stars. One evening, Kevin brought her a gift, a large frame filled with small photos. Reese singing, Kevin holding Noah, the three laughing under the sundae. In the center, written in his handwriting, "Family, not born, but built." Reese traced the words, eyes glistening. You always know how to make me cry. Kevin chuckled, pulling her close. That's okay. This time, they're happy tears. She leaned on his shoulder, watching Noah play in the golden light. You know, she whispered, I once thought I'd lost everything, but maybe life was rearranging things, so the right people could show up. Kevin smiled. And you're proof of that. Reese stood on the hill behind the house one afternoon, facing the sea. The wind tangled her hair, and sunlight brushed her cheeks. She felt different now, strong, grounded, sure that happiness wasn't something given to her. It was something she had fought for. She was no longer the woman thrown out into a storm. She was the woman who had walked through the fire and carried light out with her. Kevin climbed up, Noah in his arms. What are you thinking about? He asked. Reese smiled, squinting into the Sunday. Just wondering if it's time to put my crown back on. He laughed softly. You never lost it, Reese. You just forgot you were a queen. She looked at him, at the child in his arms, the home below them, the sea that had witnessed every piece of her rebirth. The wind swept past, carrying the scent of salt and new wood, and in that moment, Reese Carter knew. She was back, beautiful, strong, free, and finally loved the way she was always meant to be. 3 years later, Seattle was still calm, but inside Reese, a quiet pull whispered one name: New York. Not because she missed it, but because she knew, to truly move forward, she had to return to where it all began and ended. One morning, as Kevin played with Noah on the porch, Reese walked over and said softly, I want to return to New York for a few days. Kevin looked up, understanding instantly, no explanation needed. I'll go with you. Reese shook her head, smiling. No, I need to face it alone. He nodded once. I trust you. Remember, you never have to face anything alone again, Reese Carter. The flight brought her back to the city, where the scent of cinnamon and apple pie still lingered in her memory. April in New York was gentle sunlight glinting through Central Park's branches, a light breeze brushing the streets like gold dust. Reese stood on a Brooklyn corner, where her old apartment once stood. It was rented now, new curtains, flower pots on the balcony. No trace of that stormy night remained. Only her, a woman transformed, looking at her past like an old photograph. She crossed the street and stepped into a familiar cafe. The same young barista looked up. What can I get you? Apple cinnamon latte. Like always. The girl paused, smiling in recognition. You're the woman who used to sit by the window, writing in that little notebook. Reese smiled. Now I write stories for children. When the cup arrived, Reese wrapped her hands around it. The scent of cinnamon rose softly, once a trigger for tears, now just a sweet memory. She walked along the avenue until she reached a tall building on the Upper East Side. There, a familiar figure stepped out. Bruce. He was older now, gray at the temples, his expensive suit unable to hide the emptiness in his eyes. A young woman stood beside him, laughing. They didn't see Reese. She stood still, watching. No anger, no pain, just a small, honest smile. Then she turned and walked away. She had forgiven him, not because he deserved it, but because she deserved peace. When Reese returned to Seattle, the sky was streaked with sunset gold. Kevin was on the porch, and Noah came running, laughing. Mommy, Daddy burned the kitchen. Reese laughed, hugging her son, then looked at Kevin flower on his shirt, a guilty grin, eyes shining joyfully. You're home, he said. Yeah, she whispered, and I realized I didn't leave anything behind. I just needed to go back to see where I belong. He didn't speak. She reached up, her hand on his cheek. I love you, Kevin Lawson. Not because you saved me, but because you stayed when nothing was left to save. Kevin froze briefly, then pulled her into his arms tight, grounding. The last rays of sunlight tangled in their hair as the sea murmured in the distance. Noah wrapped his small arms around both of them, giggling. The house by the bay was livelier now. 6 years old, Noah ran across the yard with a red kite. Reese taught art to children. Every weekend, Kevin played guitar at her school picnics. They never married, they didn't need to. Papers couldn't define what they'd already built. One afternoon, Noah asked, Daddy, why don't I have your wedding picture? Kevin laughed. Because your mom and I got married with our hearts, not a paper. Reese smiled, adding, and you, sweetheart, are the most beautiful wedding picture we could ever have. The boy giggled and ran toward the beach. That evening, the three of them sat on the sand, the sun melting into the horizon, painting the sea in pink and gold. Reese leaned her head on Kevin's shoulder, their fingers intertwined, Noah asleep in her lap. "Do you ever think," she whispered, "what if you hadn't stopped that night?" Kevin smiled. "Then I'd still be a lonely man with a promise half kept. And me? You'd still be the girl lost in the rain." Silence. Only the sound of the waves and the distant cry of gulls. Reese spoke again. "I think everyone has a storm meant for them. Some get drenched, some find their light after it." Kevin squeezed her hand. "You are that light, Reese." She smiled. "No, we are each other's light." If someone asked Reese Carter what love is, she'd say, "Love isn't the person who makes your heart race. It's the one who makes your heart steady again after the storm." And if someone asked Kevin Lawson why he loved her, he'd glance toward the sea and answer, "Because she didn't need me to save her. She just needed someone to walk beside her." As for Noah, the boy born from rain and dawn, he would grow up knowing that family doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be real. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Reese turned on her camera to record a short message for her class. "Life will knock you down sometimes," she said softly. "But trust me, if you stand back up and keep believing in good things, someday, someone will stop their car in the rain to take you home." The video ended on a still frame, Kevin's arms around her, Noah running in circles, laughter spilling into the sound of waves. Then her voice, gentle and certain, faded over the screen. Because love, after all, it's not about finding someone to live with. It's about finding someone who makes you want to keep living. And if you've come this far, thank you for walking with Reese, Kevin, and Noah through every storm and sunrise. Maybe, after all, we've all been someone left behind in the rain. But this story reminds us, real love doesn't arrive to rescue. It arrives to stay quietly, steadfastly, to heal. So, what do you believe in after hearing their story? Faith? Forgiveness? Or simply that love still exists? And if you'd like to keep hearing stories that touch the heart, hit like, subscribe, and share, so we can keep holding on to the beautiful things that make life worth it. Because somewhere out there, someone might need this reminder that dawn always comes, after all.